Good morning to all of you across the country. I'm Dr. Jason Bolton, Vice President of Community Partnerships and Admissions for the Help Group, and I will be moderating today's webinar titled Addressing the Mental Health Needs of Young People During the Pandemic. We would like to welcome back all of you who joined us for any of our previous webcasts that we have provided during the COVID restrictions. We thank you for all of the wonderful feedback we have received and the important questions that you have submitted to us. If you've been unable to attend any of our prior webcasts, you may find the recorded sessions at the Help Group's website. I just posted it in the chat as well for the link. Likewise, I would like to welcome any of you who are with us for the first time. As COVID restrictions are now approaching a year in duration and the prospects of a return to more normal times remain unclear, many children, adolescents, and young adults are struggling with the pressures of isolation, the uncertain future, and the myriads of loss due to the pandemic. We hope that you will leave this session better prepared for these times. I would like to introduce today's knowledgeable panel. We are happy to be joined by Dr. Christina Ortiz, Cheryl Hueso-Mishak, and Lori Owens. Dr. Christina Ortiz is a therapist and registered psychologist at the Didi Hirsch Suicide Prevention Center. She provides individual and family psychotherapy to adults, teens, and children affected by suicide and or mental illness. She also co-facilitates the teen survivors after suicide and adult survivors of suicide attempt support groups and provides clinical trainings to community organizations, schools, and businesses, offering them a view of suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention from the clinical perspective. She was a volunteer suicide crisis intervention counselor for Didi Hirsch Mental Health Services National Suicide Prevention Lifeline for 3 years prior to beginning graduate school and obtaining her doctorate in clinical psychology. Cheryl Hueso-Mishak earned her MSW with an emphasis in community partnerships and program administration and is a licensed clinical social worker. She primarily works in the area of 0 to 5, trauma, and parent-child attachment. An integral part of the Help Group's outpatient CalWorks program, Cheryl is the intake coordinator and clinical supervisor for the Individual Placement and Support Services program. She oversees employment-related services for clients who are working to overcome personal challenges through therapeutic services in order to return to the workforce and maintain competitive employment. Cheryl is certified in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, the Incredible Years Parenting Program, and infant massage. Lori Owens is a licensed marriage and family therapist and the director of clinical services for North Hills Prep School. Lori grew up in Southern California and has been working with children since high school. She received a BS in psychology from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and later completed her MS in counseling psychology at Cal State Northridge. Lori is a licensed marriage and family therapist who has counseled children, adolescents, and families in a variety of settings. She has over 20 years experience working with youth facing a variety of issues such as trauma, depression, anxiety, identity issues, substance abuse, self-injurious behaviors, eating disorders, and transitioning to adulthood. Now that you've heard a bit about our presenters, we would like to know a little bit about all of you. You will now see a short pop-up poll come up on your screen. Please answer the questions so we know who is participating with us today. And I'll give you about a minute to answer them all. Okay, I see some answers are now coming in. Starting to get a look at who we have. Just so everyone knows, we had about 1,000 people registered today, so there's a lot of votes coming in here right now. So I'll give it a couple seconds here as it accumulates. So I've got a good look here. So about half of you are service providers, and we have definitely a good showing of parents and teachers as well. Most people have found the pandemic fairly challenging, and a lot have really seen some incredible challenges. And folks are really concerned. Over 80% feel very concerned or that we're in a crisis right now. So I assume that's why we have so many on today. And there's varying familiarity with anxiety in young people. So thank you for doing that. I will let you know that you may need to hit the X button on that poll screen to clear it from your screen so that you can see our pretty faces. We at the Help Group are honored that you have chosen to spend another hour with us. For those of you joining us for the first time, let me tell you a little bit about the Help Group. Among other social and mental health services, the Help Group operates 16 non-public schools in Los Angeles and Orange counties in California, serving students with autism spectrum disorders, learning disabilities, ADHD, developmental delays, and emotional challenges. We contract with more than 80 local education authorities to provide special education and related services to more than 1,300 students. Like many schools in the country, on March 19th, after local and state guidance, we pivoted our instructional practices to a distance learning and remote services delivery, and remain committed to best practices in addressing the needs of children and young adults during these times. Today, you will hear from 3 experts about the unique mental health needs of young people during the pandemic. We will start by hearing from Dr. Ortiz as she describes the current state of young people's mental health and details critical safety plans that parents and teachers can employ. We will then hear from Ms. Weissel-Mishak, who will concentrate on the unique needs of younger children, and then end with Ms. Owens's focus on adolescents and young adults. As we talk today, you will have the opportunity to submit questions using the chat button located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will allow for a period of time at the end of the presentation to field some of the more salient questions. If we're unable to answer all of the questions, as often occurs, we will monitor them all and answer more of them in a follow-up email to each of you. So let's get started. Dr. Ortiz, the media is making us aware of the importance of understanding the effects of the pandemic on young people, including higher rates of depression and even suicide. Can you tell us more about what you are learning from your work in a community-based suicide prevention center?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for the introduction, Dr. Bolton. I'm excited to be here on this panel to talk about helpful ways to meet our community's mental health needs at this time, right, during the pandemic, particularly around youth and suicide prevention. Suicide prevention is an area of focus that I am really passionate about and about teaching, and I'm going to offer everyone here a few tools to use if you are worried that a youth may be at risk for suicide, or if a youth discloses they're having suicidal thoughts. I really believe that anyone can learn these tools, and just like with CPR, talking about suicide is a life-saving skill that I think we all should know. So I'm really happy that we're all here together talking about this right now. So I'm going to start by sharing with you some important statistics about suicide and why we as a community should be concerned right now. We know that for adults, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the US, but for those ages 10 to 24, suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death. And we also know that suicide rates for this age group has doubled since 2007 and continues to rise. Right, so you were probably wondering if the pandemic has affected youth suicide rates. Well, right now it's actually too hard to tell regarding suicide deaths if they have increased. Still, research is coming out on the topic and does show some indication that the pandemic has harmed youth mental health, including increasing suicidal ideation. There are known risk factors associated with an increased capability for suicide. These listed here are the ones that affect youth the most. And for a list of common factors associated with suicide, I encourage you to visit the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. There you'll find a link, and we're going to be providing you a link as well to afsp.org. I'm going to talk to you now about some warning signs. There are also common warning signs that precede a suicide attempt. Warning signs are like invitations to ask about suicide. So you can also find a list of the common ones at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention website as well. I encourage you to visit that site. There's a lot of good information there. All right. So let's say there is a youth you believe is at risk and showing invitations to ask about suicide, and you're concerned. You want to take the initiative and create the opportunity to meet with them one-on-one. When talking with them, speak with them calmly, confidently, and sincerely, using appropriate language and concepts for their age. Talking about suicide is an act of strength and courage. So we want to make it as easy as possible for them by giving them our full attention and conveying empathy, warmth, and respect. Begin the conversation by letting them know you genuinely care about them, how they're doing, you appreciate them coming to talk with you, and identify qualities that you admire about them and your observations that make you concerned. So if you know of any stressors that they might be going through, note those. For example, you can say to a child, I notice how kind and considerate you are to your friends. I've also noticed that you've been isolating, haven't wanted to talk to your friends like you used to, and you seem really, really down for the past few weeks. Have you been having thoughts of suicide? Or you can ask, when you say that nobody would miss you, or you hate your life, or you can't imagine anything getting better, I wonder if you think about ending your life. Be direct, talk openly and matter-of-factly. And I cannot stress this enough. Asking about suicide will not cause a youth to think about suicide. Instead, by asking, you communicate that you are a safe person to talk to and are willing to help. You can also normalize that people sometimes think of suicide when they feel hopeless, trapped, or like a burden. That people sometimes believe that their pain is so unbearable that they think about death as a way to escape. And you wonder if things have gotten so bad for them that they're thinking about suicide. Then most importantly, be a good listener. Youth need to feel seen, accepted, and safe. Expressing their pain and listening well is one of the greatest gifts you can give. Listen to the reasons for wanting to die. Allow them the space to talk about that pain and their ambivalence. If they are in a dark place, go with them there, because that's where they are. That's where they need you. All right, so when we hear a youth share thoughts of suicide, a natural response is to feel concerned, right? Unfortunately, if we are not prepared for these conversations, we can get scared, freeze up, and don't know what to say. Or we can do this other thing where we jump to offering answers or solutions, kind of like putting on a Band-Aid. So while well-intentioned, these reactions can make a youth feel ashamed, isolated, or misunderstood, and will risk shutting down a conversation very quickly. So instead of fixing, the response youth need right now is for you to be calm and show empathy, right? They need that compassion and not judgment and validation from us. So a simple way to validate youth could be by reflecting those feelings, letting them know that the feelings make sense given all they're going through. You can acknowledge it's not easy to talk about suicide and thank them for telling you. Let them know that you are here to listen and help. Express gratitude for that vulnerability. You can say, I'm so glad you're able to share that with me. You must be in so much pain. Tell me more about what's going on. We never want to avoid, judge, dismiss, or minimize anyone's thoughts of suicide. So don't argue whether suicide is right or wrong. Take those thoughts seriously. For example, we don't want to say things like, you'll get over it. You're so young. You have everything to live for. It's not that bad. Suicide is not going to solve anything, or you don't really feel that way, or think about your mom and dad. Suicidal thoughts are often preceded by a piling up of stressors that affect life areas that can make the future seem dark and daunting. If intense or long enough, youth can feel overwhelmed, hopeless, trapped, and in psychological pain. Without relief, they can believe that the only way to end their suffering is possibly by escape through death. So listen to those stressors. Ask about those significant changes or crises related to perhaps their mental health, physical health, identity, autonomy, friendships, or community. Ask about what COVID has been like, of course. To assess a youth's level of risk, you want to get really curious. You want to ask further about their desire to die, right? Explore if they have any reasons to live. See if there are risk factors present that could increase their capability to act on a plan. And most importantly, if they've ever attempted suicide before, or if they've known anyone who has tried or died by suicide. Ask directly their intent to act on their thoughts of suicide, whether they considered a method, made any plans or arrangements towards carrying out a plan, maybe giving away possessions or writing a letter. If they have a plan, ask them if they have access to those means. And very importantly, discuss those buffers. So buffers are the protective factors in their life. These are their reasons for living, their hopes, their goals, their dreams, the people that they feel connected to and supported by. Ask if anyone else knows, and be prepared that this might be the very first time that they've ever had the opportunity to share their suicidal thoughts. I cannot tell you how many times that youth tell me it's such a relief to finally talk to someone about this. If a youth is having thoughts of suicide, the first tool that's important to give them and their caregivers, if you're not a parent, is a safety plan. A safety plan is a personalized plan for coping that the child creates for themselves when feeling overwhelming emotions and thoughts of suicide. Safety plan is meant to empower youth to cope. You can say to them, when emotions become overwhelming and thoughts of suicide occur, it's tough to know what to do to feel better at that moment, right? And so that's why it's important to write down a plan to cope ahead of time to keep you safe. What do you think about creating a plan like this together? I recommend this plan be written down or completed using a safety planning app. They have these on the phone right now. This is an example of one that we recommend. It's called My3, shown there. All right, so I'm going to go with you over the important parts and steps to a really good safety plan. And there are also templates available online if you just Google safety planning. But I'm going to go now into depth exactly about what kind of goes into each step. So the first step is to help youth recognize precisely when they should use their plan and anticipate when they might need additional help, right? So we want to help them identify those specific thoughts, behaviors, and feelings that are likely to dysregulate their emotions and activate suicidal thoughts. For example, it might be arguments with someone they care about, or beliefs that they are unworthy or unloved. In that case, if they know that, they know ahead of time that if this occurs, they have a plan to cope. The better that they can identify the specific situations that lead them to think about suicide, the better we can identify coping strategies that are likely to work. Tools we recommend to identify activators are the use of daily thought and mood records. There are also apps that you can find to do this if you look on your app store and type in daily mood record, things like that. All right, step 2. So step 2, here we want to guide them to identify healthy coping strategies that they can use to regulate emotions and feel better in that moment that without the need for help from others. So this might be a hobby, an activity, a relaxation technique. While these don't solve the problem, and it's not meant to, but what it does do is help bring them out of that fight or flight mode, to provide them time to let that crisis pass and to train their mind how to handle those suicidal thoughts. For example, for a child, it may be to curl up in a soft blanket, cuddle with their pet, listen to some calming music, or take a time to journal. I like to teach youth belly breathing and mindful meditation exercises. Okay, step 3. So these are the interactive coping strategies that involve interacting with places or people where they feel safe. Ask them if there are any places that make them feel better or safe, if there are any people that help them feel better by being with them. For example, a child might say, it really helps to be with my mom when she cooks dinner, or I like to play online games with my friends, or I like to go outside to the park. Step 4. Okay, so these are their social supports that they trust and feel comfortable reaching out to help. In addition to any friends, help them identify those healthy adults in their life that they can go to. So a parent, a family member, a neighbor, a clergy or faith leader, maybe school staff, someone there. Ask them what they need from others when they are feeling this way. Maybe they just need a hug or words of encouragement or simply space to talk about those feelings. Step 5 involves their professionals and agencies in the community that provide mental health support. A school counselor, a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, right? You can also educate them about the Lifeline. That's the numbers here. I encourage them to actually put this number in their phone. It's 800-273-TALK or 8255. And also the teen line. That's 1-800-TLC-TEEN, and where they can talk to another teen. It's very crucial to connect youth to professional mental health as soon as possible. Step 6 is about creating a safe environment. Most suicide attempts are impulsive because when people are emotionally overwhelmed, they think that their pain is unbearable and they want relief quickly. This makes sense, right? So this is very important it's very important to remove any easy access to means because it allows time for feelings to change. So if a youth says that they might be, I'm thinking of overdosing on Tylenol, right? You can problem solve with them and have their parents hold on to the medicine to keep the youth safe. Parents, you can assist by locking away any medications, weapons, alcohol, things like that where youth cannot find them. Very important. All right. So let's suppose your youth says that they have the desire, they have the intent and the means to act on a plan, or you have like a deep sense that something is seriously wrong, or there are other serious warning signs. In that case, immediate actions to ensure their safety need to be taken. Do not leave them alone. Depending on the risk level, this might mean taking them to a hospital for an evaluation that day or making a next day appointment with a mental health professional. You can also call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline as well if you just need help. We get a lot of calls from parents and caregivers about their youth and just needing that extra guidance on like what's the next steps. So please give us a call. All right. Let the youth know that you will continue to support them by frequently checking in with them to continue to have open and honest conversations about their feelings and thoughts of suicide. Youth need to feel like there is a safe place to talk about their health and that mental health is a welcome discussion at home and at schools. So finally, very important, get support for yourself. If you have a child that you are concerned about, reach out to a therapist at the Suicide Prevention Center. In addition to offering individual therapy for the child experiencing thoughts of suicide, we also provide therapy for the parents as well. So You can consider also joining a family support group offered by the National Association of Mental Illness. That's also called NAMI. Parents often say they just feel so relieved and grateful to talk to someone about this, perhaps too for the first time. Here's some other resources as well. Please take a screenshot here if you're watching us live. This is the Suicide Prevention Center, the Trevor line, a website to know the signs again, and then that teen line number that they can call or text. All right. Well, that's my time. Please reach out to me or anyone at the Didi Hirsch Suicide Prevention Center if you or anyone you know needs support. Your time and attention here are very valuable, and I really thank you for giving some of it here today for mental health. All right, so to close, I'd like to leave everyone with a short mindfulness exercise that can be adapted for youth as well. You know, we talked a lot. This could be a very heavy topic. So, all right, so if you'd like to participate, sit comfortably, keeping your back straight, your shoulders relaxed, eyes gently closed or softly gazing. Take a long, deep breath in. Feel your body as you inhale, and take a long breath out. Notice your body as you exhale. Then, breathing naturally, watch the rhythm of your breath. Follow your breath in and out from the start to finish. Rest your mind softly on your belly area or your chest. Don't try to change or alter your breathing. Just be aware as you breathe in, aware as you breathe out. Simply observe, stay attuned to those sensations of each breath. And when you feel ready, gently open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ortiz. You are doing such important work, and we appreciate your sharing your expertise with us today and for leading us in an exercise of self-care. I know that helped me with this transition. I do want to take a further moment to recognize the heaviness and intensity of talking about youth suicide. The remainder of the presentation today will focus on prevention and good practices to intervene with youth to bolster their ability to better manage anxiety and depression. And we will be talking more about the importance of self-care as well. Before we continue, I do want to remind everyone that we are monitoring the chat. We will take some questions at the end, but we will also follow up with an email addressing many other questions that we aren't able to get to just because of time today, okay? But let's continue. Ms. Wiso-Mashak, Dr. Ortiz just shared the scope of the problem with us. With your experience with younger children, can you talk more specifically about how younger children are experiencing COVID restrictions, what we should be looking for, and what we should be doing?
Yes, absolutely. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Dr. Bolton, for the introduction. I'm really going to be sharing with you guys more about behaviors and symptoms that we could maybe watch out for with younger children about, I would say, ages 2 to maybe 7 or 8. And this really is more focused on some things you'll see regarding anxiety and depression, especially during COVID. And I also want to share with you all some ways that we could be supporting them. And this can apply to providers, parents, any adults that are supporting little ones. So this next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. You might see that some children during this time might experience a little bit more restlessness. They might feel a little more tearful. You might see them displaying an increased worrying. and a desire to want to control their environment. You might see them displaying intense feelings, and that can be something, intense like anger, sadness. And these feelings could really be triggered by pretty much anything within their environment, as well as a perceived lack of control. And it could also impact children that have difficulty expressing their needs appropriately with adults. They might also have difficulty sleeping. You might see them becoming a little more clingier with caregivers, as well as seeking constant reassurance from caregivers or other adults within their environment. You might also see them internalizing behaviors, withdrawing, withholding language. They might hide. They might show diminished joy in activities, lack of motivation to do things, as well as a desire, like I mentioned, to really want to control more things in their environment, such as meal times, bath time, toileting, things like that. And in this next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you could maybe support some of these kids that are showing some of these symptoms and behaviors. Some of the things that adults can do to really help children is you can use books to create a shared understanding about this pandemic, about what's happening within their environment, and pretty much about anything. And there's a lot of great books out right now, really highlighting some of the difficulties children are dealing with during the pandemic. You can also use art to help them understand their feelings and emotions during this time. So, for example, drawing pictures with them, creating narratives around their experiences, and also help with labeling their feelings, normalizing, and also empathizing with their experiences. Adults can ask questions, and just keep in mind to try and stay away from language that shames, blames, or creates guilt for the child. For example, you can ask things like, what do you feel? And where are you feeling it? I wonder if you're angry because your toy broke. So you're making an interpretation, right, as to what could possibly be happening in that moment. You can also try to describe the behavior rather than labeling it. So, for example, describing you're screaming and crying right now versus you're having a fit or you're not being a good boy right now. Remember to point out when they're making positive choices. Children love this. They love to impress adults and people around them, and let them know that you're really here to help them. You want to help them make these positive choices. You can also provide what's called co-regulation. And really the concept of co-regulation just means that you're simply maintaining a state of calm in order so that you could support the child in being able to regulate their own emotions and their feelings. You can also provide modeling and coaching to, again, just really be able to help them practice these coping skills. And I've included a link at the bottom from the CDC. They've actually been able to provide a lot of resources that can help children from birth to 24 years old navigate this time. And it has a lot of great child-friendly resources as well for parents and providers alike. And in this next slide, we'll go a little bit more into self-regulation. What does that look like in children? Really, the concept of self-regulation is just being able to control consciously your thoughts, feelings, behaviors when you're presented with challenges or you're triggered in your environment. It's managing your attention and your emotions well enough so that you're able to tend to task, you're able to organize behavior, and you're able to complete your task successfully. It's being able to modulate your instant reactions to events and responses to stress. Young children become really dependent on adults around them to provide co-regulation. And really, self-regulation can be promoted through various things, especially through consistency, nurturing care, and modeling. And you would want to be able to model these skills and techniques for the child as well. And the concept of co-regulation is just really having warm and responsive interaction so that you are able to provide support to the child when they're having big feelings. You can use coaching, you can use modeling, as I've mentioned previously. You could also create a quiet space for them to be able to calm down. When adults are able to self-regulate, they in turn can provide co-regulation to the children, thus conveying understanding, patience, empathy, love. You can also use this concept of time in. The time in technique really just allows a child to receive support when they are feeling deregulated, and it's really meant to help bring them back to a more calm state of mind. When children are engaging in negative behaviors, for example, such as aggression, defiance, tantrum, it might be really tempting for an adult to come in with limits, strict rules, and rigid expectations. And if this happens, it's okay. Adults can always repair and take ownership of these mistakes that they make with children, of the feelings they're having in the moment, and of the actions as well. Keep in mind that co-regulation really requires being attuned to the child and being able to pick up on their cues and responding to them in a very consistent manner. Co-regulation can increase, like I mentioned before, the child's sense of trust, safety, and really contributes towards positive and healthy lifelong relationships. However, keep in mind the amount of co-regulation that a child needs can really change depending on their age and internal or external factors. You might find that a child with sensory needs or speech and language needs might require more support from you, or that during this time, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, you're having to provide more assistance in really helping a child regulate their feelings and emotions. And next, I'm going to share with you, as Dr. Ortiz briefly stated, mindfulness. It's such a great coping tool that can be adapted to use with little ones. Mindfulness is really just used to engage your senses physically and really to bring attention and energy to the world around you. It can help with our bodies just being able to manage physical responses when we become triggered. And it's really been shown to help improve anxiety, stress, depression. It helps to promote self-compassion, positive emotions. And really, mindfulness can be done anywhere and for any length of time. This visual you see is just one of the many visuals that I've used with children to help them conceptualize what mindfulness is. For younger children, you can use different concepts that they understand to really help them understand the breathing, the visualization. So for example, things like lion breathing, to take deep breaths in and blowing out anger. Pinwheel breathing, just having them take a deep breath in and seeing how fast they can make the pinwheel move as they exhale. Smelling a flower and then blowing out candles on a cake is another analogy that we use with children. And this last slide, I just included a few resources. Feel free to take a screenshot of it if you'd like. It just is some resources to help you get tools for children, like to help them with mindfulness, for parents, providers, animal breathing cards, different things like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's always nice to have your toolbox filled with more and more proven interventions. And I'm especially glad that you are reminding us of the importance of recognizing feelings that children are having right now, especially in younger or pre-verbal children. It's so important to do that. So thank you for sharing with us. Again, I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions that we don't get to, we will answer those in an email to go out to all registrants afterwards. And I noticed that many people are asking for certain links that presenters have talked about, and we'll make sure that we get those to you. Maybe not in the chat right now, but eventually through the email that you will receive, we will get those to you as well. Okay. Ms. Owens, you work with middle school and high school students in a school setting. What are the common issues that you are seeing with your students, and how should we be addressing them?
Thank you for having me, Dr. Bolton. I'm happy to be here with all of you this morning, or for some of you, the afternoon or evening. It's kind of amazing. We have people from all over the world today. No matter where you live, we've all faced many challenges during the past year as all of our lives have been upended. Some of those challenges are universal, and some are specific to the population of students that we work or live with. I hope to share some of the ways that we've supported our students and families who have struggled with anxiety, depression, and other mental health conditions. As the clinical director at a special education campus, I work with students with emotional disturbances. Many of our students and their family members were emotionally unstable before the pandemic. Since the pandemic began, access to mental health resources has been disrupted or limited. Families have increased stressors like the loss of job or wages, family members becoming ill, cramped living environments that aren't conducive to privacy and certainly not to remote school or work, having to learn new technology. I mean, did any of us even really know what Zoom was last February? On top of it all, our students, our teachers, aides, administrators, and counselors were also experiencing many of the same stressors and uncertainty. Our students rely on our staff to provide a calm, reassuring environment, and we weren't feeling very calm or reassured. So it really was a sink or swim moment. So we started swimming. We took everything we know from our years as educators and mental health professionals and figured out how to support students and families from a distance. We're a small, tight-knit school, and we pride ourselves on really knowing our students and families. We pride ourselves on the relationships we build with our students and use those relationships as a tool to help our students reach their academic and emotional goals. Even though we felt like we know our students, we decided to survey our families to determine what wellness needs they had since we switched to remote learning. We asked them about their physical, mental, financial, social, and spiritual health. I'm so glad we did this because even though we know our families, some of their answers were not what we expected. We found many of our students felt isolated and missed attending school, much to their surprise. So in addition to remote academics, we plan non-academic after-school opportunities to provide more time for our students to engage with peers and staff. We added clubs, gaming, art, and hangout time based on student interests and needs. Also based on the individual survey results, we identified community resources for our families, everything from mental health counseling, food banks, internet support, to church events. As a school working with students with emotional and behavioral needs, we're used to being flexible, but we got even more flexible. Starting classes later, wake-up calls for students, breaking our therapy sessions into smaller chunks multiple times per week, allowing anxious or embarrassed students to keep their cameras off during class time, providing supplemental packet work. We had a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. So like I mentioned, we've always been a relationship-based program. Those relationships built before the pandemic really came in handy keeping students engaged in learning. Maybe they didn't feel like going to math class that day, but they really wanted to tell Miss Ong something or wanted to see their school friends. We do a lot more hand-holding now, calling and emailing students daily to encourage them to come to class, providing one-on-one tutoring, even making time for students to do things like exercise, read, do art together, or cook with preferred staff to maintain those relationships virtually. There are two evidence-based models that we used before the pandemic at our school that we've been able to translate into our remote learning program. I want to share a little bit about the neurosequential model in education and MindUp because I think they are applicable not only in a school or therapeutic setting, but also in a home environment. I'm going to talk first about NME, or neurosequential model in education. I know it's a mouthful, but NME is an evidence-based, trauma-informed approach to education and student behaviors. It's not a specific intervention, but rather a model of brain development and developmental trauma. I could spend hours talking about NME alone, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version for the sake of time. There's two core beliefs in NME. One is that a dysregulated brain cannot learn. And the second is that safe and trusting relationships are vital for the growth of our brains. Simply put, students can't learn if they are experiencing intense emotions or if they don't feel safe. So it really doesn't matter how brilliant your lesson plan is or if you have the world's best teacher. It's not the teacher's fault the student can't learn, and it's not the student's fault either. It's just neurobiology. They are literally too sad or anxious to learn new information. So at our school, if our student is experiencing intense emotions, we must assist them in regulating that emotion first. So the whole principle of NME is that you regulate the emotion first, relating to the student to increase those feelings of safety. Only then can you reason or teach a student. And this includes not only the students, but regulating our emotions as well. We can be too anxious, too sad, or angry to support or teach a child. We help students regulate emotions by using things like a de-escalating tone of voice, keeping a neutral body language, and assisting students in using their preferred coping strategies. So some examples of useful interventions are offering frequent breaks, use of stress balls or other manipulatives, walking or other exercise, listening to music or journaling. Every student's a little different. Our school therapists have gotten pretty creative and have found lots of how-to videos for making stress balls, slime, and other hands-on activities on Pinterest and YouTube. Many just use expensive home items, and students can make them with their teachers, therapists, or parents. So using the NME principles, you want to avoid a few things when working with children who are emotionally dysregulated. Don't engage in power struggles if you can avoid it. Someone always has to lose, and usually it's you. Kids, especially teenagers, are really skilled at power struggles. Less talking is more when a child's in crisis. Remember what I said earlier, learning and remembering aren't happening when a child is too angry, sad, or anxious. Better to use brief commands and directives in a calm, assertive tone. Things like, let's take a walk, or take a deep breath. And it's natural to want to discuss consequences, especially when a child is upset or misbehaving, but they can't hear it. And it usually escalates the negative emotions you're seeing. So it's better to wait until the child is emotionally regulated before discussing consequences or debriefing a situation. In NME, the primary focus is to de-escalate and assist children in regulating their emotions. So the second model I like for helping students to regulate their moods is the Mind Up program. Cheryl and Dr. Ortiz already spoke to the usefulness of mindfulness, and I wholeheartedly agree. Mindfulness is a large component of the Mind Up program that we use. So Mind Up is an evidence-based social emotional learning curriculum. It covers things like self and social awareness, relationship skills, and self-management. It's a 15-session curriculum made for school programs. It's primarily designed for elementary and middle school students, but we've really found that the curriculum is very applicable for high school age students. And we just adapted some of the exercises to be more age appropriate for our teenagers. Mind Up also recently added a parent section to its website and has adapted some of the curriculum for at-home activities. And before we finish up today, I'll give you the links for those. So the core practices of Mind Up are deep breathing. They call them brain breaks. These are done multiple times throughout the school day. We like doing it at the beginning of the school day, before break time, coming back from lunch, things like that, and at the end of the day. What we do, you can do lots of different things, but we ring a chime and the students focus on their breath until they no longer hear the sound of the chime. Another core practice of Mind Up is focusing attention. This includes practicing being mindful, taking breaks, teaching students to notice when their mind wanders. Anyone noticing their mind wandering right now? We are also practicing gratitude. There's research on how practicing gratitude daily can increase overall feelings of well-being and happiness and decrease negative emotions. So we do things like catch students being good, help students keep gratitude journals, celebrate our small wins, share acts of kindness, and teach our students to pay it forward. So this slide feels like the most important one to me. If you're not okay, you can't help someone else. Self-care is essential in the work that we do as parents, educators, and mental health professionals. Our administration is really focused on providing additional attention and support to our teachers, our TAs, and school therapists. More time for supervision, both formal and informal. We debrief and take time to come together as a team, expressing gratitude to each other and celebrating each other's wins, big and small. So in the spirit of self-care, I've included some ways to manage our own stress. I'll highlight a couple of these. First, cut yourself some slack. We all have friends, neighbors, and coworkers who are living their best life during COVID. They're baking bread, exercising every day, teaching themselves Italian while homeschooling their children and working remotely. But there's no award for the best use of time during a pandemic. If you made it to February 2021 alive, you're doing something right. So give up your unrealistic expectations for what you and your kids can achieve during this time. Enjoy your successes every day, no matter how small. Ask yourself, what's going well? Stay connected virtually. Keep your support network strong, even if it's only by phone or text. Socializing can help you feel better and stay grounded. Accept your feelings. Many of us feel sad, angry, and anxious right now. Acknowledging that instead of trying to fight it allows us to ride out our emotions. When you're taking care of yourself, you can better take care of your children. So be a mindful family. Find a way everyone can slow down, stay present, and come together. Maybe like a family walk, a meal, or a game night. Stick to routines. Consistency and structure are calming during stressful times. As much as possible, kids should wake up, eat, and go to bed at their normal times. And last but not least, validate feelings. Kids, especially teenagers, are disappointed about losing important experiences, like being on sports teams, dances, plays, graduation. Let them share their feelings. Listen without judgment and resist the urge to reassure them that everything will be fine. So here are the websites for MindUp and NME. They have videos and much more information about their models if you'd like more information. NME has a whole section on COVID on their website right now that they've added. And like I mentioned, MindUp added a parent page to their website that has lots of good information and activities you can use at home. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Lori. There's no doubt the importance of understanding the impact of personal trauma on every student, especially during these times. And thank you for giving us some tools and learning about NME and MindUp. We have a tiny bit of time here to answer some questions that you've submitted to us during the webinar. And also when you registered, you had an opportunity to submit questions as well. We're only going to probably be able to get to one or two right now. But again, like I've said before, we will get more answers out to you through the email. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Ortiz. This question says, I'm a parent. What do I do if my child does not want to talk to me about suicide?
Thank you for the question. Yes, so this is a common question that we do get from parents, and understandably, right? So what I really encourage you to do is to kind of lay the groundwork for having mental health be a welcome discussion in the home. So this means talking about your own mental health in a way that's very positive and what I mean by that is that you are also, in addition to talking about mental health and having that a welcome discussion, you're talking about ways that you're using what you're doing to cope, and another way to communicate this is by checking in with them, incorporating just mental health discussions just throughout the day, and then also really reinforcing to them that reaching out to parents and teachers is the healthy thing to do. And that their openness to talk and attend to mental health will likely increase that the youth will come for support, right? So often children do have difficulty talking about their suicidal thoughts to anyone. And the common reason that I hear why youth are uncomfortable calling or telling their parent is that they really fear that they're going to burden their parent, they're going to worry them, the parent's going to overreact, or they really don't want to make their parents worried or make them angry, right? So you can normalize this, validate how hard it is to talk about our feelings and thoughts of suicide, and tell them that even though it feels uncomfortable, right, it's the right and courageous thing to do because they matter. They deserve to feel happy and protected and supported, so communicate that and tell them that you want to know and you can handle talking about suicide. One mom I supported told her child, you don't have to worry about me. Mommy can handle anything you tell her. She's strong. And we're going to get through this together. The sweetest thing. So if they're still resistant, to talking to you, I suggest finding any other adult that they may be comfortable talking to, mental health provider, a social worker, family member, a significant other, and just anyone in their life, any other one of those healthy adults we were talking about. And then educate them about the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, that teen line as well. And if I did not mention, definitely there's school resources like a school counselor. And I really want to thank someone in the chat said, don't forget the school social worker as well. So provide them other resources for other people that they can talk to in those ways. Great question.
Thank you very much, Christina. I saw that comment as well. Respecting everyone's time, we have unfortunately come to the end of our time today. I want to thank Dr. Christina Ortiz, Cheryl Wasto-Mishak, and Lori Owens for sharing your expertise with us this morning. This presentation has been recorded, and we will let you all know when it's available to view and share with your colleagues and friends. If there are any questions that we weren't able to get to today, we'll share some of those with you in a follow-up email as well. Please join us on Saturday, February 20th at 10 a.m. For the Help Group's virtual Distinguished Lecturer Series featuring Sir Simon Baron-Cohen, Professor of Psychology and Psychiatry at Cambridge, as he talks about his new book, The Pattern Seekers, How Autism Drives Human Invention, which will be followed by our own Dr. Ellis Krasnow presenting Building on the Strengths of Young People with Autism Through STEM Education. Also, be sure to look for our next webcast scheduled for March 10th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. In addition to our outreach to you, you can find more information regarding the Distinguished Lecturer Series and our next webcast on the Help Group's website. These certainly are challenging times, and we all look forward to the day when all students are back learning on their school campuses. In the meantime, this is a time to focus on giving every student a quality distance learning education. At the Help Group, we endeavor to provide that to our students and to impart what we have learned to parents, other schools, and other communities. If you'd like to learn more about our schools and programs, including our virtual school programs for students with special needs within or outside the Los Angeles area, you may go to our website at www.thehelpgroup.org, email our admissions department at admissions@thehelpgroup.org, or even just give us a call at 877-943-5747. We appreciate the more than 1,000 of you who chose to spend your valuable time with us today. Real quickly, if you wouldn't mind, at this time, we would like for you to respond to these 2 brief questions that will pop up on your screen so that we can get a sense of how helpful this webcast for you. It will just take a few seconds. Oh, thanks, guys. And then again, once we end the poll, you might just have to hit the X button to get out of that, to clear your screen. Thank you so much. And although we are honored to be able to share our expertise, we are equally saddened that a webcast on this tragic and difficult to discuss topic garners so much interest. We at the Help Group are here for you when you need us. We wish you a safe and healthy year, and we hope that better days full of friends, families, and colleagues are in our near future. Have a great day.